Patrick Ryan, thank you very much. You're head of research at Marubeni Corporation, one of the biggest trading companies in Japan. We see some kind of openness or opening of Japan. Do you think it's real? And how is the role of a trading company evolving in this environment?
You mean opening Japan to like overseas investments, etc.?
Investing trade, goods, and so forth.
Yes, this has been going on for some time, and it originally came about during the following the bubble bursting. And at that time, Japanese government was worried about the competitive Japanese companies moving overseas as they were going. And the reason for that was much of Japan's domestic business at the time was protected. There was a dual economic structure, and they were high cost. And they felt in order to make the domestic economy more competitive, that they needed to start to deregulate. And this started happening in the 90s and early 2000s, deregulation, the financial big bang, the retail store law, for example. So this started happening. And I think it's just been continuing, and from our perspective, from the trading company's perspective, it's fine. We don't mind it opening and more competition, et cetera. In fact, because of our global connections and all of the business we do now, more than 50% of our business now is global rather than Japanese. We have many partners overseas, even in the EU and France, et cetera, that if we see a good business, we can bring them to Japan as well. So I think in this regard, also recently, I think Japan is the economic, because it's shrinking, et cetera, they're worried about maintaining competitiveness, and they want to attract more foreign investment. Of course, that's been going on for a long time, but I think that that's what they're thinking.
In terms of the role of trading company and raw materials, how has the role of trading company evolved on this particular field?
In raw materials?
Yeah, and in energy.
Yes, basically, of course, originally, we brought, after World War II, we brought in all the raw materials, intermediate goods, intermediate materials, industrial equipment, technology, energy, resources for Japan's industry to rebuild. We also brought in the foodstuffs. And basically what happened over the years is we played a very strong role in the development of the Japanese economy because of this. However, to protect ourselves in this supply chain, so to speak, we started investing in companies in the supply chain. So in order to increase our profit as well, so for example, raw materials, we used to just be a middleman, a buyer and a seller. Okay? Now we can be eliminated in that trade flow. For example, if a steel company, iron ore and coal, wants to talk to the mining company, they can. So we started investing in mining companies, for example, to gain ownership of the actual resources. And so that we get it at cost, so that will increase our profits. Also, because Japan, as you know, has no natural resources, etc., we've developed a lot of skill in this area, so to speak. So not only do we supply Japan still with most of their raw materials, energy needs, and foodstuffs, we also now do this overseas. And it started with supplying Japanese manufacturers. I mentioned today when they started investing overseas, we went with them, and we helped them with their supply chains overseas. Anyway, in the commodity field, we're very involved in. And it's kind of a volatile field, and you have to worry about things like natural resource nationalism. So for example, we're in the business of, let's say, metals and minerals, smart metals, rare metals, etc. China, in 2012 or so, because they were increasing their consumption, they cut off the export of rare metals, and they were the main supplier of that. So there's these kind of areas too. But our resource business is still very important to our.
And so, final question: you think your model is more and more integrated rather than being just an intermediary?
Oh, very, very much so. Very much so.
Brilliant.
Basically, we have two businesses. Our traditional business is that of a super supplier, super trader, distributor, wholesaler, upstream from raw materials, midstream to the final maker, downstream to the consumer, in an array of different industries. Our other businesses, we organize infrastructure projects. to protect ourselves. If we don't have ownership in the supply chain, we get eliminated. So that's what initially caused us to start investing in companies in the supply chain, and with the aim of integrating it. So for example, in foodstuffs, I mentioned today grain. So we are one of the largest grain traders in the world. So we will, for example, ship grain to Japan, to grain centers. Then we will sell it to the feed maker. We own one of the largest feed makers in Japan. Then we sell it, for example, chicken farms. We own one of the largest chicken processors in Japan. And we now have ownership downstream in the supermarkets and stuff. So by integrating this, we do two things. We protect ourselves in the supply chain and we increase our profits, basically. And we do this in different industries. So that's how we're surviving these days. It's through investment.
Patrick, Ryan, thank you very much.
My pleasure, Regis.